My name is Catherine Torres. I'm a detective with Ventura County Sheriff's Office, and my primary assignment is I'm assigned to the Ventura County Human Trafficking Task Force. So my role on that is I'm one of the lead detectives, along with being the coordinator of the grant that we received from the DOJ. I'll give you just a quick minute of what exactly is the task force. So the task force was formed in 2019 when the Sheriff's Office applied for a grant through the DOJ to be funded in order to create an official task force reference human trafficking. With that, there was also a grant that Interface Child and Family Services applied for, which would put us together as partners, and they are our victim service provider. So anytime that we come in contact with victims of human trafficking, or if we have referrals for victims or vice versa, if victims feel like they want to come forward, they can either go through Interface to get to us, or we can refer victims to Interface. What's unique about this is that we've really taken on the role of becoming more victim-centered and using an approach of being sensitive to the victim's needs, really trying to create investigations without using the victim. We see that in a lot of like our domestic violence cases where those victims will end up not wanting to testify and come forward against their perpetrator. And the same thing kind of falls in line with human trafficking victims, is that they're scared, maybe being threatened by their trafficker. So we really are very sensitive to the needs of our victims and really put a huge emphasis on trying to create that case without using our victims as much as possible. Some of the things that I kind of wanted to go over a little bit, because I know some of your primary interest was what does human trafficking look like in our community? What are some signs of it? How can we try to prevent it, or how do we even identify it? So for each victim, they go through a grooming and recruitment stage. All of our victims, they're not a one size fits all. They could be a foreign national, they could be citizens here in our nation, they could be juveniles, and they could be adults. We see victims from all walks of life. They go through what's called like a grooming and recruitment process, and some of those processes may start in the sense of maybe a romantic tactic, false job advertisements, social media, cults, sale by family, gang involvement, friendly helping tactics, or educational travel opportunities. So we do see human trafficking come out of a lot of different situations. Some indicators of human trafficking that anybody can be on the lookout, whether that's you as a community member or us as law enforcement officers, is if you come across somebody who's fearful or resistant to assistance, hostile, maybe they don't know where they're at, maybe they could be confused about what city they're located in. They might have like a scripted or inconsistent story. They may not be in control of their money or documents. They may be under the control of somebody else, unwilling to answer questions, or surveillance or monitored movement by their trafficker. Again, when it comes to indicators as well, we have to, from a detective standpoint, we have to prove a lot more, right? In the human trafficking realm, there's, we have to fit certain probable cause and gather certain evidence, but these are just some of the signs that might come about that you would see walking down the street with somebody. Again, just because somebody is, hostile towards questioning or things like that doesn't necessarily mean that they're a victim of human trafficking, but it could be one of many different signs of human trafficking. Indicators of, I think Kristen just got booted off. One moment. Okay, yeah. So Kristen just did get booted off. She's gonna end up logging back in a couple minutes.
Okay, sounds good.
So some indicators of commercial sex. Commercial sex is, again, these victims could be inappropriately dressed for the area. Maybe it's really cold outside and, they're in lingerie or something like that. Documents in somebody else's possessions, branding. So that could be tattoos, might be afraid of law enforcement, very little personal belongings, many multiple mobile devices, large sums of cash or gift cards, little to no control of money, frequent STIs or commercial sex industry verbiage. This again is something you'll probably see more, that I would see more on the detective side when I'm investigating these types of crimes. You won't necessarily see a lot of these things, but again, if you see victims with multiple of these different types of indicators, then they could be a victim of human trafficking. The one thing about commercial sex when it comes to any juvenile is, and this is something that we, really try and preach, is that there's no such thing as a child prostitute. So juveniles are unable to participate in any sexual acts. So if a juvenile is being involved in commercial sex out of a hotel or a motel brothel, that's automatically human trafficking. And then let me quickly go back a little bit. I guess I should have opened up with it, is what exactly is human trafficking? So human trafficking is where a trafficker will get a hold of a victim through any type of grooming or recruitment process, and they have to use a force, fraud, or coercion in order to obtain from that victim a commercial sex or a labor trafficking type of service. So as a detective, what my job is to do is to obviously prove the elements of the crime, which is going to be that force, fraud, or coercion. There are crimes underneath it, which could also qualify, such as like pimping or pandering. Those are not exactly human trafficking charges, but each of those charges for a trafficker are state prison mandatory sentences. So let me move on to Kristen, because I believe we only have about 10 minutes, right? So I'm kind of speeding through this really fast.
Yeah, you're fine. You guys are fine.
Okay, so I'll let Kristen talk a little bit more about the victim side of it.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, first of all, for inviting us to come speak. We, part of the task forces, one of our deliverables is to spread education and awareness on human trafficking so that we can better provide prevention, protection, and prosecution in our county. And coming together in platforms like this and providing.
Oh no, she froze.
No. I know she's been having some major internet issues today.
Part of the new world we live in.
I was just gonna say, it must be going around.
Yeah, because Cindy just froze too.
I'm on my phone, my computer, yeah.
You're moving slowly.
My internet
So
needs coffee
I guess I
today.
can, yeah, seriously. So I guess I could talk a little bit just about Ventura County in general. Is a lot of the questions that we get is, does human trafficking even occur here? We don't believe that human trafficking exists here. And this is a lot of the things that we hear from it. One of the things that you have to remember is that California is a hotspot for trafficking. Ventura County, we lie between two major hubs, which includes LA County and the Bay Area. And the 101 freeway serves as that corridor where traffickers can move their victims from one county to the next county for either commercial sex in local motels, labor on illegal farms, and then the illicit massage business. So human trafficking is a very transitory crime. It's a lot of the times what we'll see is that a trafficker will bring their victim to hotels. They'll stay there for 2 or 3 days, and then they move on to a different hotel before they bring about attention from law enforcement. So as a community, right, it's our job to really be on the lookout for those types of things to make sure that people are not being put in situations that they don't want to be in. When it comes to victim services, we work with Interface, and then Interface Child and Family Services subcontracts to another nonprofit organization called Forever Found. And Forever Found really targets the juvenile victims that are located in our county. And what Interface does is they provide a lot of services. They have an emergency shelter housing where if victims of human trafficking come in and they need emergency housing, Interface can arrange that. We have multiple houses within the community that serve as those shelters. They are assigned a caseworker. These caseworkers are trained to identify human trafficking. And one of the unique things about a human trafficking caseworker is that there's federal law where they have privileged communication. So anything that that victim says to the caseworker, they cannot relay to law enforcement without the consent of the victim, which really helps to build a rapport with the victim and the caseworker, because obviously victims will assume that caseworkers are going to tell law enforcement anything, but there's actual law that they have privileged communication. And then with that being said, the caseworkers are really equipped to help navigate the legal system, whether that's getting continued presence, trying to qualify for any type of benefits and things like that. So being able to work with our victim service providers has been a huge help, and that's something that we're really trying to strengthen the bond between law enforcement and victim service providers, because we've realized as we're investigating these crimes that we truly need each other to succeed in order to rescue victims out of these situations. As far as the juvenile victims, some of the things that Forever Found offers for our juvenile victims is they can assign them mentors, and 2 mentors will be assigned to a juvenile victim within our community and will really kind of be that anchor for them. Somebody that they can rely on, somebody who's always going to be there when they call or text, somebody that they, you know, might take out to lunch or take out to the park or something along those lines. And it's really unique because if you think about some of our juvenile victims, right, a lot of these kids are in foster care, in group homes. They've never had that solid foundation of a family. So to be assigned a mentor really assists them as they're going through life, because it really helps to kind of put that positive person in their life that will always be there, unlike so many other people in that child's life. So Forever Found does really great work and with our juvenile victims in the area. And I think that's kind of all I have. If you guys had any questions for me, I know I really blew through it, and obviously we do presentations with our community, longer presentations where we can actually have a slideshow and kind of go over some cases that we have. So maybe at some point, if we organize something along those lines, we would definitely love to do that with you guys.